4, 3.
We'll do it live!
Now we're live! Erin Kennedy. The general craziness of it, the impact on your life.
We have gone through so many stories and we said, you know what? This should not be kept to the two of us. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited
Good.
about today. Like I can't
I
even
am too.
because
Yes.
today's the day, everybody, where we are going to be joined by, thank you for the drum roll, the most requested person. I wish that we could just channel even what 20 minutes in the makeup room together in years past sounded and looked like for you guys.
We're going, I think we will, but yes.
I think we will too. In the absence of being able to exactly recreate that, we're going to do this, which is one better. And without further ado, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, Marissa Bailey.
Marissa!
This does feel
So
like
good
the
to see
makeup room.
you.
It's so good to see you guys too. Oh gosh, it feels like old times again, like makeup room at 3 a.m.
Oh my God. Do you ever miss it?
The makeup room or the 3 a.m. or all of it?
All of it. The whole thing.
You know, I miss aspects of it, but I think overall I'm good, man. I'm good being out. I think sometimes when I first left, I missed it a lot during breaking news because I always loved covering breaking news, especially as an anchor. And then as times pass now, there's such a beauty in being able to be like, I don't have to watch that. I don't have to care about that.
How long did that take you until you got to that point though?
Oh, well, Erin, that's a great question. It took me about a year, except the year mark was March 13th of 2020.
Oh,
Yeah. So then the news started ramping up, and then I was like this, watching the entire time for COVID reasons, obviously.
Yep.
But literally the 1 year, so I was let go March 13th of 2019. So my 1 year anniversary was literally when the pandemic started. So, but I would say, I mean, truth be told, I still DVR newscasts like I was working in TV, and all I do is go in and delete them. I don't watch them, but
You're just
I
not at the
can't
step
still
yet where
delete
you can't record them. Yeah.
Hang on. What are you recording? Like the evening newscasts or the ones that we used to be on and then deleting them? Or where are we recording?
So I'm recording a midday newscast, and I'm recording the 5, 6, and 10.
To get ready for the next morning step. We don't have to.
Correct. And honestly, it does help in times when like like if I get home and it's like just after the A block, like I still talk like I'm in the news, but if it's just after the top of the show and I'm like, darn, I wanted to see what was going on with this or something, I can always roll it back, but I don't watch it like I used to.
You're like a smoker who just has to keep the pack of cigarettes on them, but not smoke them.
This is the nicotine patch.
True.
This is what we have right here. I think.
It's a little bit in the blood.
It is. And I think there's coming to a point when I'll be able to delete them at some point and not record them at all. So we'll see.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's an important thing to say though, is that like when we were in that industry, we all had such a passion for what we were doing. It wasn't the process of telling the stories of the day. It was everything else associated with it that made it very difficult to deal with. So the actual job itself, the relaying of the news or the weather, we loved.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think, I remember this very vividly. Erin used to think I was crazy because I would be like watching the news all day and at my desk and at home, and I'd be texting, and she would just be like, you got to disconnect. And I remember feeling in the moment, like, how did she do that? Like, how do you just go home and like put your phone away? Just like not care. And I remember, and now I understand it. And I think it was probably part of the reason why I think were a little bit more, you had a healthier relationship, I think, to the job than I did, which I always felt like I have to watch everything. If I have to be able to ad lib about the election out of DuPage County, I need to know the candidates. I need to know their story. I need to know. And I just felt like the scariest thing to me in the world as an anchor was being unprepared. And that's why I felt like I had to watch everything. Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So that was like your dream. Like people have those test dreams where they're not prepared for their test. Yours would be not being prepared for some breaking news.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And I didn't ever mind not seeing words in a teleprompter. As you know, we can all talk and we can dance, but it was the, hey, Marissa, there's been, there's an election that you have to cover. And then the sheer panic of like, oh my God, I've never even heard of this person. Or like, I don't know what their story is or any background or anything.
My newsmare was always, I would be on the desk and there was some breaking news and I had to talk about it, but I knew nothing about it. There was no prompter and I had no IFB and I had to just talk.
It's terrifying.
Which actually happened, many times, which I'm sure
More
we
than
can
once.
delve into.
Right.
Marissa, I mean, first of all, we taped a tease just a second ago because so many people wanted to hear from you. And I feel like you are a journalist with a capital J. And like you said, you went to school for it, you live it, you breathe it. I learned so much from you. And I think that your dedication to it was obvious on air, but of course it's hard not to internalize it. And we laughed at one point too. Remember when you got shingles? Because the job was just, I mean, it affects
At the age
so
of
much
what, like 29?
I was 30 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, that's the shot you get when you're over 65. You get the shot for shingles or whatever it is. Or Marissa.
I mean, I remember when I went to the doctor, she examined me and she said, I don't know what you do for a living. It wasn't I had to get in. So I just saw whatever doctor it was. It wasn't my primary care doctor. And she said, I don't know what you do for a living. I don't know what's going on in your life, but this is your body shutting down. And I was like, okay. And then of course, because I think, we live in America. I'm like, well, I can just get a shot for this. And she was like, no, you can't, because they don't give the shot to people under 55. Like this is an old person's virus. Like,
so what was it? Like if you had to list the things that led to the shingles, that led to your body saying, yo, Marissa, slow it down. What was it?
So it was a couple things. I'm going to keep talking while I let the dog out, but keep going. Sorry. Okay, so it was a couple things. In particular, at that time, I think you both will remember that I was filling in on the weekday morning show while they looked for the replacement, which was Aaron. But I was on that show for almost a year working overnights, and it was just the sleep schedule. I think that I was newly engaged, so I was planning a wedding. I think there was a lot happening in Chicago at the time, news-wise. So my shifts were longer than normal. And as you guys know, and everybody, I can't speak for the business. I will say this: I've been out of the business now for 3 years, and I think while a lot has stayed the same, I do think there has been some change since we've been in it. Especially me. But I think at the time, I just had this mentality that I should be thankful for the job that I had. And I was very lucky. And if I did anything to jeopardize that job, there was 47 other people waiting, ready to go with a camera in hand, ready to take my job. And so I think it doesn't matter if you're a plumber or if you're a journalist, that type of stress mentally will obviously translate into your body physically. I remember when I got shingles and I went to the doctor and she said, I'm writing you a script to be out of work for a month. You guys will laugh. And I said, you can't, it sweeps. It's November. You can't. She said, I don't care what month it is. You need a break. And so that I think was probably the very first time that I recognized the job was having a physical toll on me. Mm-hmm. And obviously mental at the time, but I didn't really know that. So, when you say journalist with a capital J, that means a lot coming from you, Erin. I appreciate that. And I think that I still believe in journalism. I still read newspapers, hard copy newspapers. I get the trip to my Sunday paper every week.
You're the one.
Correct. And I love it, but I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to read about it, and I will support local journalism, and I'll support journalists across the board. But in terms of the industry, I got pushed out of the industry, as both of you did as well. And I can honestly sit here now, 3.5 years out, and say it was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I would say the same about me, but I had to be pushed out. I had to get kicked off the merry-go-round.
Oh, yep. 100%. I mean, yep. I was like, yes, I had to get pushed off as well. And I think that, ladies, let's be honest. How many times do we sit in there in that studio with our microphones on going, I can't do this anymore. I can't. We all had kids.
Times a week?
If those makeup room walls could talk, like it was a really hard job physically. And I will say to you, that I still talk to people that are in the industry, in newsrooms in the city of Chicago, multiple newsrooms. And it's the shift never gets easier. Your body never gets used to an alarm clock at, 2 a.m, give or take. And I just constantly felt like I was playing catch up. I remember when to give the listeners kind of or viewers, I should say, that kind of some context. So I was on maternity leave and got the phone call about coming to have a promotion. And so my son at the time was very little. He was, I was going back to work. He was 3 months old. So I remember having to pick between taking a nap, working out, or going to get him from daycare early so that I could spend time with him. Or showering. Yeah. Right. I mean, anything, Right. And so, and it wasn't until I was out of it that I realized, wow, that is wildly unhealthy.
Before we talk about when you came on the morning show, just to kind of talk about a weird industry standard, though, was that, Marissa, you were doing that job for a year before I was hired. And the stress of feeling the ground shift under you, that every day is an audition. You want that job. You don't know if you're going to get it. And then, like you said, I mean, there were 47 other people, me being one of them, lined up behind you. And I mean, that is, how do you ever feel comfortable enough to unplug or slow down when like you are auditioning every day?
That's a great question. And to Megan's point, I do think that played into it a lot. I think one of the harder calls was when the position was vacated. I got the call to start Monday as filling in as the temporary permanent anchor. What? And so I did that. And so all I can tell you, and Megan, you were there, it felt like a funeral. I felt like I was walking into a funeral. Yeah. And it, because everybody else, of course, now is concerned for their jobs and, what happens to the team and how does this play out? And then here I come and I'm supposed to be auditioning, like bringing the personality. I mean, it was a really, really hard time. And I just remember, if I could go back and tell myself anything at that point, I would have said, you can't worry about it. You just have to go every day, do the best job that you can, and let everything happen behind the scenes that's going to happen. I think, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, and I think it's always hard to, when you follow somebody who is well liked in the market, as who was your prior, who's doing it before. And that's the sad thing when you have to leave in the cover of darkness and people don't get to say goodbye. And then you look like the young upstart who took her job.
It's exactly what it was. And to that point, I'm gonna be real delicate on what I say on this, but that you hit the nail on the head exactly. And then to do the job for a year, have somebody come in, audition, get the job, and then, oh, by the way, I actually really like her, like which is you.
Dang it, I like her.
That's the icing on the cake, right? No, to be honest, I kind of felt the same way about Megan. I was like, God damn, she's the whole package, right?
You told me that. You were like, because Erin had some kind of something with some weather person in her past that she didn't love. And then she was like, I remember her telling me, yeah, I think I actually like you.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah. I mean, and we can all speak to this, that females in a competitive industry can be tough. And, there's not everybody has your back. And that, to meet the two of you and to get along with you so well, it's lovely. It's a lovely experience to have,
It is. And I think the one thing that people may not understand too is that whether it's an audition or you're getting a brand new job, you're so excited. This is like your chance for something, or you're moving into a new market and you want to come in with all this fanfare, but chances are you're replacing somebody else. And so somebody inherently was friends with that person and they don't like you, and you've got to try to win them over, and it may or may not ever happen. And you've got viewers who are constantly saying, oh, I really loved so-and-so. I wish she would come back. You're just trying to be excited for yourself. It's hard.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's like, and the thing I try to explain to people is, television, for better or for worse, is a one-on-one medium. It's a very intimate medium in the sense that, and you guys know this, it's you turn it on and there's Erin on TV or there's Megan and you're welcoming them into your home, right? And so then all of a sudden you turn the TV on and your friend's not there anymore. That person that you really liked and trusted, it feels like a void. And my husband, the day that I got let go, said, television's the only industry where you get let go like this. It really is. Like, it's just where you're just like, one day you're on TV, one day you're not, one day your job, one day you're not, you know? And so, that part of it, I don't know that that's changed. I mean, obviously I walked out the door and never looked back, basically. And despite, as we've talked about, offers from other places, it just, something about it just felt icky, and I needed to take a break, and I'm glad I did.
I just want to show a couple of photos so that people understand that we really did like each other. Oh, Marissa, too. I kept getting the question, did you really like Ed Curran?
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
I know. Yeah. Right.
Everybody likes Ed.
I think because you guys also got on so well, people are like, can they really like each other that much?
Oh,
yeah. Sometimes you get lucky enough.
Yeah, you do. And the thing about it is, Ed Curran, God, what a gem of a human. We still text from time to time. We've gone to lunch a couple times. My husband, you know, Ed's a car guy. My husband and I bought a new car last year. And of course I had Ed on the horn right away. I was like, hey, what do you think about this car? Like, tell me what you think, you know? Ed, that was, so Ed Curran and I anchored the weekend morning show for 5.5 years. And so that was a happy accident. We did not audition together. It was just an assignment that we were going to be together. And it was lovely. And I think what worked, honestly, was Ed is such a breadth of knowledge about Chicago, down to street names and shops and you know, the taco place that he likes in Pilsen and like all that stuff, right? And so he's such a gem of a human in general. And then you add that Chicago to it. And here I come, and I can say this now, but I am not from Chicago. I'm from upstate New York. And the first time I'd ever come to Chicago was when I moved here for my husband's job. And I obviously got a job here as well. And so to learn so much from him, like every show was great. And then he realized that, you know, you guys know I don't take myself too seriously. And so he loved the pranks part of it. And that was something that it was very organic. And yes, 1000%.
Well, and I think it's hard to sometimes, and I find this with women and men, sometimes when they're older, they don't want to help the younger people because sometimes in the industry, they want them to fall flat on their face. And it's a steep learning curve when you move to a new market. Okay, but just to say, I always loved working with Marissa on the desk because, as we've said before,
what is happening in this picture on the left?
I know I kind of produced it oddly here. So when we first found out that we were going to be anchoring together, Marissa was on maternity leave. And so we went to my favorite place in Chicago, which is the Garfield Park Conservatory. And this was the goat yoga.
Oh, that's right.
And then on the right,
bonding mission.
Yeah, Marissa the Beauty in what would later become a band dress because leather is not allowed, Marissa, not on brand.
Oh,
I know. I love that dress. I still have that dress.
Oh my God, you can't bring yourself to ever throw that one away. That was such a hot dress.
Yeah.
I loved it. And I shamefully, I won't even tell you who makes it. Okay, so these pictures I sent to you, Erin, because I wanted people to know just how much fun you have in the business. And so that's obviously me with the Stanley Cup on the left. As you'll notice, I don't have any makeup on because I was so tired from covering the Stanley or the finals the night before that I was like, oh, I'll go to work without makeup on. And then they said, go find the Stanley Cup. And oh, lo and behold, I found it. And now my picture will forever be me without makeup. Anyway, so there's the Stanley Cup. And then that, the shot of the airplane, that's me. You can barely see it, but I'm in the front seat. And Sean D. Tucker, who's a stunt pilot, is behind me. And I was able to go up with him the weekend before the Chicago Air and Water Show and do stunts. And it was terrifying and awesome at the same time. But again, just a really fun thing. And then, of course, we all know that's Michael Jordan all the way over there on the right.
Like magazine photo.
I know. It's actually, so that's outside the federal court building, the Dirksen Federal Court building. He was there for, I believe, a copyright infringement case involving his name or number or jersey or something in Dominic's grocery store. And he was testifying. And fun fact, and this is still true to this day, because it's federal court, people can go sit in the courtroom and watch him. So I was set to cover the trial. So I was sitting probably, 40 feet from the king, Michael Jordan. So that was the picture I snapped as he walked out. And I just wanted to send these across because I think sometimes in the industry, we can always talk about how hard it is and how, it's such a tough time suck and it's so stressful and mentally and all that, but there's also a lot of really high points as well. And then that photo there on the left is actually me sitting at O'Hare Airport. And I always love this picture because it's the true snapshot of what it is to be a journalist, which is it's not glamorous, man. You're sitting in an airport. I got an old Starbucks. I got my feet up on my duffel bag, and I'm trying to log tape and write a script and do all the things. And so I think sometimes people don't necessarily see this side of it. So I thought that would be fun. And then that picture there on the right.
It's because you love Notre Dame.
I know. I
love Notre Dame. Go Irish.
Was that football, Erin, or was that basketball?
Oh, that's like, I would not think Notre Dame won basketball, but they don't play Syracuse. Do they?
I think that's why I had it on. I think they played, and we had a bet. Whoever,
yeah, but I can't remember if it was football or.
I can't either. But
I'm always up for hazing. You know.
Yes,
for hazing.
Do you know what I see in those pictures though, Marissa, too? And it's like that unwritten thing that you can see because I know what went on probably in large part. When you are lucky enough to get to work with an awesome photographer or an awesome crew or whomever that may be, you're in the trenches with these people and you make memories with them and you have stories that you will share for the rest of your life. I am really happy that I have those stories. I just don't really want to add to them.
Yeah, point. Right. And you know what's funny? I remember when I was pregnant, I remember saying to myself, if I go into labor in a live truck, which you know about, Meg, if I go into labor in a live truck, which photographer would I want? And then I decided it was this one photographer in particular because he had 4 daughters. And I was like, he's been through this 4 times. He's got this.
But there's always that one you hope it's not you. Like, but I hope it's not that one because he doesn't have kids and he'd be totally uncomfortable. Yeah, I had those same thoughts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Marissa, do you want to talk about though how difficult it was coming back to a job you love, but a job that was very tough after having a baby, in a highly visual medium in the middle of the night, not sleeping because you have a baby and because you're third shift. I mean, it's hard.
It's really hard. And you guys have all done it and you know it. I think I felt at that time I had to be all things to all people. I had to be a good mom. I had to be a good wife. I had to be on time at work. I mean, it just was overwhelming. And to your point, Megan, about what that does to your body, it's constantly, my mind was racing. I went back when my son was about three months old. And less than when he was about 9 months old, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety, and shocker, right? Yeah. I mean, with the anxiety stuff, but that really was the beginning of my mental health journey and figuring out that I don't know that the job was really good for my mental health. And even if I had known how to handle it and where to go and what to do and who to talk to and all that, I don't know that I would have navigated it in the same way if things hadn't played out exactly as they had. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so to me, one of the voids, and I've shared this with both of you, is that I believe that there is not enough done in television news and in news in general, even print reporters, for mental health. I mean, we are sent out to cover some of the hardest, toughest stories in our community. And then we're expected to go back the next day and do it all over again. Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to complain about it, but I do think that there's an opportunity for a particular newsroom to figure out a way to offer services. And these EAP, these employee assistance programs, they're not enough. I mean, we need to start doing things like, if you're covering, for example, the story, and I don't want to get, I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but I do want to highlight it. That sweet Tyshawn Lee, 9-year-old little boy who was lured in an alley and executed because of his father's gang affiliations. I sat at St. Sabina Church and mourned with that family and covered that, and then was expected to go back the next day because I had made contacts with those people. And what I really wanted to do was go into bed and cry for 8 hours straight because it was so overwhelming, But
you can't say no too, because if you at least didn't feel like you could at that moment, and across newsrooms everywhere, you just suck it up and you move on to the next story. And the next story might be just as bad or worse, maybe just different, but there's no real time to decompress and get it all out.
And there's nobody.
As a journalist, Marissa, if I were to pick somebody to cover that story, it would be you. And it's an honor to tell people's stories. I mean, in their lowest moments, to have somebody who sincerely cares about telling their story right.
But if you care, it's that much harder.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that, I think that newsrooms are probably getting better because mental health is such a focus right now. Mm-hmm. I think that there's probably changes that are happening. I know for a fact, I think her name is Julie Wolf. She's a news director out of Seattle. I actually worked with her in Buffalo but they've brought in people, mental health counselors, to assist the staff. And I think that, you know, if newsrooms and news corporations can figure out a way to do that, I think not only are you going to have people, you know, in a better frame of mind, but think of it like this. We as journalists are sent covering the destruction or the shooting or the whatever the case may be, right? And so are police officers. So we're running towards the danger, right? And police officers have to go through, and all these first responders, they have services, whether or not they use them, but they're available because it's been already determined that there is a mental health effect on with their job. And so why wouldn't reporters and journalists have the same sort of resources? And I have a dear friend of mine who works for NAMI Chicago, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And she says all the time that when they have their people go out into the community, they approach reporters and say, "Are you okay? Do you need to talk? How can I help you? Here's a number."
And then they start crying.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're probably and exhausted on top of it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I remember I was sent to Boston to cover the marathon bombing, and I was with an outstanding photographer at the time, and he's still working in the industry. But at one point, we had such a stressful weekend. I turned around and I looked at him and I said, "I need a minute." And I turned around and walked away. And it was the gravity of the situation. I had to have my husband throw my best friend's baby shower because it happened while I was in Boston. And it was the you know, everybody was on edge because the shooter was still out there, and it was just all the things, right? And I turned around and walked away and burst into tears. And it was like an emotional download, you know? And I think that probably happens more often than not, and we don't really talk about it. But I guess if anybody listening is a journalist now, the one thing I would say is that, you know I'm always here to talk to people. I know there's places out there that can help, and it's okay to not be okay, especially in that industry. And, you know, you guys know, we're always supposed to be stone cold and, you know, put it in this compartment back here and don't think about it and all that. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, you know?
Right.
Yeah, you're supposed to be witness to history, which is never and oftentimes very painful, right? That you have to witness these things, tell those stories, but also tell those stories on a deadline, get everything done, turn right back around, go in the next day, while also navigating all the other stuff that's going on behind the scenes, which is that feeling that sometimes maybe if I don't do this shot right, somebody else might do it better and they might get my job. There's all kinds of undercurrents that are constantly happening. I think that's the case of any job, but this one you're doing in the public eye. Right. And you're seeing these things often. It's not like once a year.
Marissa, you had said, and again, we have to kind of dance around this. You have said that we kind of lived through moments in TV news that would not be allowed today. Do you want to talk about any of those moments?
Sure.
You didn't sign the NDA, right?
Well, this is what I'll tell you. This has happened at all the places that I've worked. Something of this fashion has happened, and I don't know that it would happen today. But I remember distinctly in one place in particular getting called in because my the roots on my hair were too dark, that I needed to get my hair colored. And I also remember the conversation wasn't super comfortable because I think the person delivering it knew they shouldn't be having it. And like, my frustration in the moment was, okay, let me get this right. You want me to go color my hair, which is an expense out of my pocket that you're not paying for, but the expectation is that it has to get done. Like, it just felt icky, if you will. And so I don't know that, I mean, there are some real trailblazers in our industry we're seeing Black women wear their hair naturally. I mean, that's leaps and bounds from where we were, you know? I think we're seeing so much more diversity on TV. And I think that I do see, as a viewer, I see the industry changing. Does it have a long way to go? I do think it does. But I think that when it comes to some of the appearance stuff, I think that it's definitely, there's things that we live through that I don't know would be allowed.
Right. Well, and then, so even if you dyed your hair, like let's say your natural color, if you're tired of coloring it, you would still have to get that change approved because any significant changes to appearance had to be approved. That include hair color, haircuts, bangs, whatever. And generally,
whether you wear it straight or curly in some cases.
Right. Generally, they'll say, no, that's not the look you had when we hired you. That's not your brand. That's not our brand, you know?
And for a while, I believed that. Like I bought into that. I was like, yeah, if I go to Target and I buy a towel and it's white, I expect a white towel. in a month. Like I understand. And when I open it up and it's a purple towel, well, that doesn't, I get that. But as time has gone on, I'm like, I was in the industry for like 11 years. Like, how am I not supposed to change in 11 years?
Right.
So
you're an ever evolving human being, and to be
Right.
always fitting into that box. And look, we're also navigating stuff like having babies, which can change your body, which can change your perspective, which can change so many things. Late night shifts can affect a lot of that stuff too. It's very difficult to always fit into this little box that you were put in at the beginning when you were first hired. It's almost impossible.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
All right. So I think that we should maybe put a pin in this one.
Okay.
If you feel like that you've gotten everything out that you want to say. I think, Marissa, you're doing a great job of being an advocate. And I know from talking to you now that you seem like you're in a much better place. So
Oh, yeah.
100%.
I'm definitely in a much better place. I've done the therapy, I've done the meds, I've done the shadow work, I've done all the things, life coach. I mean, I'm more fit than I've ever been in my entire life. And I don't know that it would have been that way if I hadn't left the industry. So
I can see it, by the way, Marissa.
Oh, that's also called sleep, Megan. I'm getting 8 to 10 hours now.
There's something to that.
We now know what that is. All right. So, Marissa, you are a lovely human being. You have such an important message, and we're so glad that you were sharing it with us today.
Oh my gosh, I love being with you guys. It's like coffee talk. Oh my God, Megan, we didn't even talk about our sleepover that one time with remember the snowstorm?
Snowstorm?
Yes. Marissa and I had a slumber party. It was the most fun ever. Can we recreate that, by the way?
Yes. Oh my gosh. We were so giggly. We were so tired. It was like, I think we got 2 hours of sleep, but the hotel was across the street from the station and we needed to be close in case the storm came in. And we had some fun stories. Yeah.
Oh my God. That was so fun. We've just,
and you very kindly invited me and I was like, there's no sleep going to be happening in that room.
That's right. You missed out.
You're right. I missed out on the memories. I did get a couple more hours of sleep.
Yeah, but who cares?
So funny.
Marissa Bailey, thank you. So good to see you.
Of course. Yeah, you too. Thanks, ladies.
Bye.